Welcome to the Feria TechCast, where we bring you all things science, engineering, technology, and innovation. Today, we are joined by Teddy Bloom, an engineering technician with the New Mexico Department of Transportation, and an endurance athlete who is channeling his technical mindset and physical perseverance into a remarkable cross-country mission. He is currently riding over 3,000 miles from the Golden Gate Bridge to the Washington Monument with a peaceful protest he calls Ride for Rights. Through hail, dust storms, and extreme winds, Teddy is advocating for free speech, justice, civic education, and national unity, using his journey to spark dialogue and inspire action across diverse communities. So, Teddy, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
All right, so let's start with your background, Teddy. You're an engineering technician with the New Mexico DOT. So, I'd like to ask, how did your background in engineering and infrastructure prepare you logistically and mentally for a 3,000-mile bike protest?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I worked as a structural engineer in the industrial manufacturing world first, and then I moved on and worked with the DOT in New Mexico, which is, as people know, they deal with the roads and bridges and whatnot. For this trip, it was interesting to see other states and how they work as well too, because each state has their own DOT, and in the United States, they work very independently for it. So the bike ride, the concept of it is I'm riding from San Francisco to Washington, D.C. I started April 20th. It went to August 16th, and it was 3,732 miles was the final total. So it came with a lot of different ways, and bike infrastructure is a big new deal in the US about how a lot of people are more riding bikes, whereas in Europe, people have been doing it for decades. But in the US, a lot of people now ride more bikes for exercise, to go to work. Dealing with the road infrastructure is very different in each state, how quickly they've upgraded their infrastructure to handle bikes. So states like California, Colorado, and Utah had really good bike infrastructure and was very safe. So there's always a separated bike lane. Cars were used to it and pretty good with you. Utah did a lot where it just had bike trails you could get to all the train stations, so it was very easy for that as well. And then you got to states kind of like Illinois, which didn't have a lot of bike infrastructure, and you had to worry about cars and stuff like that. So it was important in routing, and it was interesting for me to see the difference that has been done throughout the country as far as like dealing with bikes. And it did provide a lot of challenges for me as well. So I did a lot of dirt roads and state routes as too. And a lot of states, they do a better job with their dirt roads than not. Like when I was in Nevada or eastern Colorado, I would get my back tire stuck in the dirt because it was too loose for bikes. So I had to honestly kind of look through the routes, and with some of my background, knowing where the roads would be better maintained, what did help me do the route better through the countryside and whatnot. But others, like the hardest state I went through is Nevada. There's almost no population in the northern part of Nevada. I was on a Route 50, which is known as the loneliest highway, for a little bit. And I ended up having to ride on the highway a little bit because some of the roads just end. They just stop maintaining them and they just kind of disappear. So I had to do some rock scrambles and crawl over things and like high winds and stuff like that just to get through the day and whatnot. So, but yeah, there's a lot of different things, and there's also a lot of history is about that too. So when you're in the Rocky Mountains out west, the U.S. was developed a lot later. So those roads were developed for cars. So you have these 7-8% grades I'm riding up, and they're pretty standard all the way through. So you'll have these long hills through the Rocky Mountains, but you're getting the same grade. Whereas in the Appalachian Mountains, which is where, when immigrants originally came to America, that's kind of the first area they really developed. They just paved over the old horse trails. So it's like you're on a 16% grade, -1, 5% grade, -2, then you're up to an 18% grade. So the Appalachians can be very challenging as well. So yeah, there was quite a bit of engineering stuff that helped me in my trip.
Well, that's interesting. So I'd like to ask, what was the inspiration behind dedicating your savings and time to write for rights? So also, what specific moment or idea made you decide this was something that you had to do?
Yeah, so I live in New Mexico, which is a border state with Mexico. And what was happening with the current administration in the US is the previous time back in 2000 2009 earlier with the administration's first term, there was a lot of children being separated from their parents with what was going on with their immigration reform. So they were trying to deport people that were parents, and then there was a bunch of kids that were just left over, and they had no home and nowhere to go, and they couldn't find the parents anymore. So I wanted to do a protest pretty early because I thought the situation would get worse this term, and it has. So I got the idea in my head, like I didn't want to do a regular protest. I wanted to do something that would stand out, something that would get people involved, and something that would bring people in that weren't necessarily political people too. I'm not a very political person. I don't really do much of that in my spare time, but with what's been happening in the US, I've become much more invested in it. So the concept was I'm going to ride my bike across the country, and that way I can get multiple people involved. It'll be different. I'll see the whole country and get a vibe for what's happening and what people think in different states. Because there's a lot of diversity in the states of like philosophy and how people live and what they do across the United States. So I got that in my head and I just couldn't get it out. And I started routing day by day, like, okay, I could ride my bike here to here today. I'll start at the Golden Gate Bridge. That'll be kind of exciting. It's kind of iconic. And I kept going. And as I got farther and farther into the route, it's like, I think I can do this. I think I can. So the message I wanted to send was a message for democracy. So Ride for Rights, it has a number 4, and there's 4 reasons for it. There's free speech, justice, education, and unity. You have to have free speech so that your politicians and the people that make laws know what the problems are in the country, and you can voice your problems to try to fix them. Justice is something that keeps your free speech legal. That way it's fair for everybody. Education, you have to know what your situation about, and you have to know how to fix a bad situation you're in to actually, make your free speech count and improve the country. And then unity, which is more of a feeling, but it's the idea of like when you're promoting something that you want to change policy, it has to be either for yourself or the benefit of other people. There's a thing going on right now in this country where people just want to hurt other people, and that has to end. So that was the idea. The Ride for Rights are 4 ideas that you need to run a functioning democracy in a country. And then again, the ride was crazy. I never did bike packing before. That's the niche sport it was. So it was a solo trip. I had 2 panniers, which are like side bags on the rack of the back of the bike. I had a tent on that rack. I had a bag on the front bar, a sleeping pad on the front bar, and then a frame bag that went in the middle. And I carried all my recording stuff. I did a video log each day. I carried all the camping gear. I carried like all the food I needed, and like, of course, all the bike repair stuff. And like, I was very inexperienced going through this, and there was a lot of mistakes on the way, but I learned and I made it. So that was.
Oh, wow, wow, wow. Sounds like a really fantastic journey. I mean, like from what you just described, you carried a whole lot. I mean, from camping stuff to recording materials to foods and bike repair kits. So, I mean, that sounds like, a lot of, extra load for biking. Yeah, so how exactly has that affected your journey? Did it actually add some extra stress to it for you? Do you think you would have been better off leaving some of these things behind? Or, I mean, I just want to know the effect of these, plenty items you took along with you and how it has affected, riding through it.
Yeah, so I was definitely punished for being inexperienced in this, and I started carrying way too much stuff at the beginning. So for your viewers that aren't familiar, I started in San Francisco, which is California, the western edge. And from that point to Denver, you start in California, you have the Sierra Nevadas. Nevada's pretty mountainous too, and then Utah and Colorado, you have like the Rocky Mountains. So from the first spiritual half of the western part is very mountainous. So I started going up the Sierra Nevadas, and I was riding with way too much gear. One day just killed me. I ended up straining my hamstring the first day in the Sierra Nevadas, and that kind of was a nagging injury the whole time. Did that, had one day where it was like 17 and a half miles going uphill. So what I did is I got over the Sierras and I was injured. I had to take 4 days off in a small town called Fallon, Nevada, where I went swimming to like just try to rehab the hamstring and get it loose enough to ride again. And it ended up sending it. Luckily, I have friends and family in Denver, so I ended up sending him a bunch of gear and recording equipment. So I would just keep the recording equipment I needed to make sure to do the vlog. So like the microphone, the camera stick, I forget the stand, camera stand, and a few other items. I mailed it to Denver and then repack those when I got to Denver, and it was a more flat journey from then on out. But yeah, it was definitely a learning experience. I played with a lot of gear, a lot of different things. Everything broke. Like nothing is built for this. Like I was rumbling along single tracks, I was going along gravel roads, and then just the amount of time spent, your bike's rattling even on asphalt, and you're just kind of constantly replacing equipment too. Like the bike is kind of constantly breaking. You're getting flat tires. No one makes computers or camera equipment to be ridden through 3,700 miles across a country. I started what really improved my videos is in Denver. I got this extra. I got a drone to follow me and like do drone shots, and the shots were awesome. It was so cool to see. Everything else with the drone was a nightmare. It was rumbling around. I went through 3 drone controllers because they all broke. The drone itself kept running into trees, even though it was supposed to have this thing, inside so it misses the trees. That was more of a beta test than it was a final product, as I found out. So it was, again, it was wild. It's like, okay, what do I need? What I don't need? Am I using this? Like one thing I just like every little thing matters. So like one thing I ended up getting rid of was shampoo because I was staying at a combination of like camping and motels and staying with friends. And it's like, okay, I don't need to carry a shampoo to just go camping if I'm going to go to a motel that'll give me shampoo, or if I'm going to staying at a family member's house and stuff like that. So I didn't have a bike lock. I actually got rid of that because it's like, well, none of the bags lock to the bike. If I ever leave the bike alone, someone can still rip the bags off and I'm screwed. So I'm not leaving the bike by itself. So I got rid of the bike lock. So it was a lot of just, you know, testing to see if you'd actually use things and seeing if you could actually ride with what you had on it. Because yeah, the weight is noticeable going uphill. Flat, if you're on the flat, it's not so bad, but the extra weight is very noticeable in the mountains.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, Teddy, you've went from hail to dust storms and 50 miles per hour wind gusts. So, I mean, this ride has thrown a lot at you. So, how did you approach these challenges like an engineer troubleshooting a complex system?
You have to like troubleshoot and think about things as they're happening because you don't know. It's like if you worked as an engineer and you're fixing stuff in a factory, or you get a call and there's a problem with something, or the contractor screwed up. Like you don't know what day is going to be the hardest day. It might surprise you. The hardest day I had was in Kansas. It was a flat day. I was actually going downhill. After from Denver through middle Kansas, you basically slowly drop elevation. But it ended up being 104 degrees. It was a 25-mile-an-hour headwind. I got a 50-mile-an-hour gust headwinds. I got really heat exhaustion. And it's a mentality of like you have to keep going. And if something breaks down, like a lot of times a tire would blow and I'd have to fix a tire, in the middle of stuff. And then I would have to problem solve, like, okay, I need this works. Can I fix this? And then you're looking at your toolkit, like, what's the minimum amount of tools I can take to fix this bike? And then when can I resupply at certain areas? Because some of the country is so rural. There's not access to like bike repair equipment, which has screwed me over too. So it is managing your supplies as well. The one time I messed this up myself, I was going to a place called Stratton, Colorado, which I don't expect any of your viewers to know. It's a very tiny town, and I blew a tire. I fixed it you have a CO2 cartridge which has the extra air, and you push it into the tire and it reinflates it. Blew a tire, got rid of that tube, threw on the other tube, did that. It half inflated. And then I go to Stratton and I'm like, all right, I gotta fix this. So I didn't check that second tire enough, and there was still a little goat head, which is like a little needle-like plant in the tube. So the second tube blew. And then I got the third tube, which was my last one, put it on, went all right, tire was clean, no goat heads. Put the cartridge on, didn't seal the cartridge right, and just wasted the CO2. So I ended up having to call my friend to drop some stuff off because we were in the middle of nowhere. Amazon didn't even, it was like a 3-day delivery from Amazon even to get supplies. But yeah, as far as engineering, it's working with problems that you haven't come across before, trying to problem solve issues, whether it's be mapping, seeing what you can fix on the fly, and then knowing like where your resupplies are, which is either like Walmart or bike shops or stuff like that. They're planning. I would say a lot of planning. So, yeah.
Interesting. So, you've mentioned broken equipment, flat tires, and injuries along the way. So, can you share a specific repair or improvisation that you had to make on the road that your technical skills helped you solve?
I would say, again, technical skills, no, we kind of touched on it a little bit, like knowing just how roads are structured. I was able to kind of problem solve where I should go from one area to another. And I was usually right about that, which is good. So I would know to avoid certain roads just from aerial shots. And then because they wouldn't be good enough for the bike tires, I was there over, better roads. And then I could also tell based on the routing which roads would be really busy and would be dangerous for me to ride on because of high speed cars and stuff like that. So I was able to look at maps really quickly and discern that instead of like diving deep into that. So that helped quite a bit. As far as the like broken equipment, it was, again, you have a limited stuff you want to carry. So it's knowing where you can pick things up and get things shipped to, but also like duct tape is amazing. I had a roll of duct tape and I used the whole roll for the trip. Like the camera stands broke, those were duct taped, some of the handlebars kind of ripped, so those got duct tapes. There's a lot of duct tape on the bags all ripped at some point. So that was tough. But yeah, it's quick fixes, quick fixes.
That's interesting. So, I'll ask this question for the engineers and builders in our audience. So, what's the most important piece of gear or tech that held up during the ride? And what's one thing you wish you'd design better?
Like I said, I was new at this, so there was always going to be mistakes on the way, and it was definitely a learning by doing. But knowing how much gear to put on was important and what you actually need. And then having the background, a lot of this bike problems that I had to fix, I was like putting up YouTube tutorials on my phone as I'm like doing them as well. And that would have been nice to know that more ahead of time to do those too. The gear that helped well is my toolkit was a really good toolkit. It was really small and it flipped out and it lasted the whole time, and that was phenomenal. The one thing I do wish I had a regular tent. I did this on a pretty tight budget. This was all out of my own money. And I got a regular tent, which I packed on, but you can get a special bike packing tent, which is much lighter and shorter. And the tent bag eventually ripped that I was having because it wasn't meant to be strapped to the back of a bike. So I do wish I did get some better camping equipment that would have been lighter and it would have took a lot of pressure off my hamstring and my legs to get over the mountains as well. So that's kind of what I would have switched out. The camera equipment actually worked really well for what I had. I'm not like a wizard as far as that with that or editing, but the camera equipment surprisingly worked well. Like I talked about, I wish the drone was more durable, but I don't think there was other options on the market for me to get that. So yeah, I would say the camping equipment was the one thing I really could have upgraded on my trip.
Okay, so I'd like to ask, what has the reaction been like in the communities you've passed through? So, are there any unexpected moments of connection or insights into the state of the country?
Honestly, everybody was really nice. And even if people, because it was a political protest, and even if people didn't disagree with me, they respected the level of effort that I put into the trip. So one lady was super nice. It was rain. I was in Pollock Pines, California. It was like pouring rain, and she just stopped her car and asked me if I needed a ride because I had to walk to the pharmacy to pick up some stuff. Where I was saying, and she drove me, and that was nice. There was a guy who offered to like watch my bike while I went into the grocery store and pick up some stuff too. So no, that everybody was very, very nice and very impressed and had a lot of questions just about like the logistics of getting across the country in the first place. So it was mostly a positive experience. The only kind of thing that were iffy were just cars respecting you as a cyclist and because you got buzzed by a few cars. I got buzzed by a few cars sometimes, and I almost got hit a couple times, and that was not fun. But honestly, the reactions again, you could tell people were pro or against it, but everybody was. It was encouraging to see how nice people were, I would say.
Interesting. So looking back on the journey so far, what has been the most rewarding or surprising part of the ride for you?
The most, I mean, I knew it was going to be hard, so the difficulty wasn't too surprising. The one thing that reflects engineering that I was shocked about, which is not good, is In America, you assume the water is good everywhere, and I did not find that was the case. So one thing I had to do, and especially in the western part of the country, is my first question when I ever got into towns is I'd ask a local how the water quality was, because some of the water you drink out of the taps in the western part of the country, you'll get straight sick out of, like, pretty immediately. And I learned if I go into a store and there's like two, a grocery store and there's like two extra aisles of bottled water, that usually means the water in the city's not good. So that was shocking to me. I did not think that was going to be a problem the whole way through. So I hope something is done about that, because some of those people are usually in small towns and deserve better. And honestly, with in America, there's no excuse that water from the tap should be bad. Some of the other things that kind of surprised me is there's a lot of just weird stuff that turned into things I had to worry about. Like in the Midwest, there's a surplus of deer right now, and they're carrying ticks that have Lyme disease. So I had to make sure to check my leg for ticks when I was going through Indiana, Ohio, and make sure the bugs didn't get me that way as well. And then like silly stuff would happen I didn't expect. Like Kansas City was testing their tornado alarm system when I was riding through, and I didn't know it. So I was riding this alarm system is supposed to be insanely loud so everybody can hear inside their cars or houses for like 2 square miles around it. And I rode right next to one and it just went off and like my ears hurt for 2 days. So that was not fun at all. It's like, what is this? What is happening? So, but yeah, a lot of surprising stuff and stuff you don't expect. So,
Fantastic, fantastic. So, Teddy, how do you see the role of technical thinkers like engineers, builders, and problem solvers in strengthening civil society and promoting justice?
it's really important now. So the one thing that's not really getting coverage in America is that we have a really big shortage of engineers. So the one thing that I'm working with, and this has been a problem in a lot of states, is we've had positions open for multiple years for people to apply for them. And there's just such a shortage of engineers involved in the construction industry. It's almost impossible to hire everybody. It's been good for the people that are engineers because it means your salary has gone up as well. But like encouraging more people to into the STEM industry is something that we should be prioritizing here quite a bit. And it's gone completely under the radar in the news. But yeah, your infrastructure is an important part of what you do, and people take it for granted. We have really good standards here, and the standards have held up well. So people here take advantage of the fact or don't realize that the reason their buildings are safe and they don't think about their, buildings or bridges need maintenance is because maintenance is done well and appropriately. And that's why accidents don't often happen. But we're starting to be at a point where we don't have the personnel to actually handle, all of the maintenance that needs to be done. So it is a concerning thing going forward into the future. And I hope that the newer generation is more interested in the math and science field.
So, Teddy, your ride is a powerful example of innovating how we engage in civic issues. So, in the context of civic action and public dialogue, what does innovation truly mean to you personally?
Innovation truly means like it's not just doing it, but it's a mentality as well. So you have to have a public that's engaged in innovating. Innovating is important. It's why medically you can, you know, 50 years ago, you didn't have a chance to survive very well with cancer, whereas today, if you have cancer, you can survive. The building, the materials you use for building is completely different now than it was. I think that's a little bit lost on the public because they see a concrete bridge and they think, oh, I've seen a concrete bridge 50 years ago, I've seen it now. But no, the material itself is made so differently. And you have to keep having that thing to innovate to improve the products that you have and improve the life of people around you. Like there's some really cool innovations we have now. Like one of the things we use for repair is carbon fiber to fix bridges and stuff like that, which is something that wasn't around. It's really cool. So you have like a wrap that goes around a beam and it can support hundreds of thousands of pounds. And I remember when carbon fiber was new and they were using it for bikes at the Tour de France. And I remember back in like 2002, 2003, they were telling you to throw away your bikes if it was carbon fiber back then because they would snap. Like that material has come a long way. So the public does get a lot out of um, spending money on research and development to innovate products, and the public needs to understand that does benefit their life heavily and sometimes their pocketbook, where stuff either gets better or stuff will last longer or stuff will get a lot cheaper. And I think that's lost on the public.
All right, Teddy. So, finally, what's your call to action for our listeners who are inspired by your journey and want to learn more or support your mission?
So when I started this mission, it was about promoting the four rights and getting people to really support free speech and justice for everybody. It's still about that, but a lot of it's about just trying to convince people to get out and protest and be peaceful about it and be motivated about it. This is a very important time in American history. Stuff that's happening now is going to affect, at least for the next 100 years, or have a ripple effect. And you need to get involved. You need to have your free speech. It's important for you and your children and your neighbors and the people that come after you. So my call to action is try to get out there. I have a website, rideforrights.com, and you can follow me on the socials, but it's not just about me. You need to get involved and participate.
Fantastic, fantastic, Teddy. It's been a really great conversation with you, visionary and insightful. So, I'm honored to have you on the show today.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed being talking to you and being here. So it's been great.